37 years old. I don't call myself 37 years young, because in reality, in my chosen profession, where you have a very short shelf life, I am at the back end. I'm in my twilight years. And when I was asked to speak, I took a long time to really think about and to form and formulate some ideas about what I was going to say to you today. From vision to impact. This will probably be the least technical address you'll hear today, because I'm here just as a person who plays quite a silly game, which today attracts the attention of over 2 billion people. What is a vision in a non-religious sense? Many of you will have many different ideas. I actually looked at this because I thought, let's start off with actually what it means to me, or what it generally means, or what it is stated as. Usually incorporates the ability to think about and plan for the future with intelligence, wisdom, and imagination, or someone's idea of how something should be done or how it will be in the future. A vision. What I like is the next definition. A vision statement defines what your business will do and why it will exist tomorrow. That is the key to me. What you will do and why it will exist tomorrow. Because that basically means you're building something that is going to endure, going to last, and to be of a lasting and positive influence on society. You are striving, as all of us are, to leave behind a legacy. We're all born with various talents, with potential, with abilities, with a uniqueness, with an individual self of being. But we are also shaped. We are people who are influenced continuously by ideas, by thoughts, by visuals, by speech, by association, and through experience. We are constantly evolving. At home, let me ask you just a simple question. Everyone has role models. This is a question I ask a lot from a lot of people. Can anyone just shout out from somewhere a person that you look up to, a role model that has inspired you? Give me a name. Anyone? Just a quick shout out. 2 names from somewhere. Other than anyone in this room. Anyone else? Just a quick one. Bill Gates. Anyone else? Steve Jobs. One more. Who's this? Richard Branson. Yeah, very nice. How do you become a millionaire? You first become a billionaire and then you buy an airline. That's Richard Branson. But it's always interesting when I ask this question, because you always hear these famous names. You hear the names that everyone sees. You hear names that everyone can associate a face to. Famous, in the news, done great things. Great things people hear about, people write about, people show you on TV. Just lose sight of that big picture. When I was asked these questions in various interviews, I give very similar answers. But when I go home and I really think about it, 37 years ago, when I was born, I had no idea who Bill Gates, Richard Branson, or anyone else, or Muhammad Ali or Nelson Mandela was. I never had that. But I had a family. I I had parents, I had siblings. To me, when I look back upon now, 37 years on, I trace my entire experience, my entire inspiration, my entire ideal of role model to that beginning, to my family, to my parents, to my siblings, to my friends, to my school. Not Bill Gates, not Nelson Mandela, not Muhammad Ali. A simple idea of family. Because that is how we develop our personality and our initial thoughts. We are a blank canvas. We are improved upon by the experiences that we share with our family first. What they inculcate in us, the bedrock of values that they teach us, which is refined through school, the teachers that we have, which is further influenced by the friendships we develop as we go on, and the lives we live, and the people we associate in society at large. But it starts at that point. Your parents try and teach you what is right, what is wrong, to be a person of integrity, to be honest, to have courtesy, respect, be responsible, be accountable. But most of all, they teach you the most important lesson in life, to love. To me, there is nothing else that forms the bedrock of your personality and your character than love. I remember when I was young, I had two very contrasting parents. My father allowed me when I was very young to keep playing sport. Up until grade 4, if you take my year-end exams, the 8 columns next to the subject said absent, 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 and absent. He appointed himself my coach in any sport I played. He still is my coach. It's a terrible thing to have your parent coaching you. It's enough that he is your father. Add to that, him being your coach, it's a recipe for disaster. But he would come, whether it be tennis. I played table tennis. I played a bit of cricket when I was quite young. By the time I was 12, he told me, if you are foolish enough to dedicate so much time to playing a sport, or if you are foolish enough to dedicate all your time to reading a book or study, just remember one thing. Just do it as well as you possibly can. And he would come at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning, when all I was thinking about was not going to school, getting up late, having a good time with my friends, hopefully, or the neighbors. He would knock on my room door and says, Kumar, are you awake? I'd pretend to be asleep. He'd say, Kumar, are you awake? Are you awake? I'd be quiet, pretend to be asleep. I can't hear him. He comes back 10 minutes later, the same thing. And he repeats that until I'm so annoyed that I actually wake up. He'd take me behind to a backyard where there was enough space, and he'd throw this tennis ball at me, for tennis or for cricket. He was a lawyer, still is, at 74, they never retired. And his first client would come around 8 o'clock. I've started at 7. I've avoided him for an hour, pretending to be asleep. I start at 7. 8:30 comes along. My mother comes out and says, listen, your son looks tired. Your client is here. It's time to stop this nonsense. You go do your work. Let your son eat breakfast. My father would say, no. He's got to earn this. He's got a few things that he's got to correct. 9 o'clock would come. My mother would come again and say, listen, your client is waiting. You know what my father would tell her? My father would say, can you please go and tell him or her that I'm spending time with my son? My mother, on the other hand, insisted that I study. I have some sort of grounding that didn't just depend on talent and sheer blind luck. and the ability to actually hit a ball with a piece of wood and make it a living. So she encouraged me to study. When I was 17 years old, I was playing a house match at school. I was captaining my house. It was a Sunday. I had forgotten, I didn't forget, I actually cut a history class where the master was waiting for me at home to play this game. I finished fielding, led my team off the field for the innings that we were going to bat, and I see my mother, arms folded, standing next to the dressing room. I'm 17 years old. I look at my mother, her face doesn't look very promising. She doesn't look very happy. And with my mother, that's always a warning sign. So I just tried to make light of it. I said, Amma, what are you doing here? What's wrong? She said, do you know that your master has been waiting for you for over an hour at home? What are you doing here? I said, oh, I got a house match, thought I played. She said, yes, it's done, you're going home. I said, I can't, I've got a bat, I'm captain. She said, doesn't matter, you're going home. At 17 years old, she dragged me by the ear, with all my friends watching, took me home. It took me a long time to forgive her for that, because that's something that you never live down at school. But I look back upon that and what my father did and what he still does. He sends me faxes at 2 in the morning. Faxes. My father is technologically in the dark ages. He faxes me pages of books that I'm supposed to read at 2 in the morning before I bat the next day at 10. Why? I'd like to think that they're completely crazy, that they're sadistic, that their entire job in life is to torture me. But it is out of that one emotion that they provide you for absolutely no charge. It's because, first and foremost, when they look at me, they are filled with love. When we are young, we have dreams. We want to be people. We aspire. Everyone has a dream, a vision when you were young. I wanted to be a fighter pilot at one time. We didn't have the best air force in the world, nor fighter jets, but still wanted to be that. It was cool. I wanted to join the army at one stage. I had so many ideas in my head. I wanted to be someone, something that I liked and I wanted to be. What you want to be, everyone has a different plan on how to achieve it. We become. That is a life journey. We become. We aspire and we become through education, through experience. We become an employee, an entrepreneur, a businessman, businesswoman, a world leader, statesman, politician. The choices are endless. We continuously strive. We motivate ourselves with various reasons. Money, fame, cars, girls, if you're a guy. Women don't think the same way of men, I think. But we struggle. We fight every day, we wake up, we face challenges. We try to achieve and to improve and to be remembered. And we fight to get what we believe is due to us in life. We believe that the world owes us. I had choices, apart from the dreams I had of being part of the Air Force or the military. I had law as a choice when I was leaving school. But I chose cricket. A really stupid choice at that time, I would say. because I was a guy with very little aptitude for it. Not very good at school either at it.
I'm to speak to you about ambition and the power of collective ambition. And I'd like to start off with a question. And the question is, how do you find that special something inside of you? How do you discover the greatness within you? I grew up in a very strange family. My mother is a Sinhalese from the south. She's also half Sinhalese. She's part Burger. My father is a Tamil from Jaffna. And I'm now married to a Muslim. I'm a Christian. Very confusing. But growing up, it was wonderful and difficult at the same time. I come from a very, very average household. My father worked hard all his life to ensure that we had what we need. But it was difficult. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. She was one of those moms, Dhananjay, who told me not to get off the bus and told me to sit in front. And I was one of those kids. I was a passenger. Will you come to the back? No, I'll sit here. My mom told me to sit here. I was that guy. But my father, on the other hand, was a rebel. He was a strong guy. And he realized that unless he kicked me where it hurt, I wasn't going to make anything out of myself. The fact of the matter is, I had to face the fact that I wasn't a great academic. I certainly wasn't going to be my good friend Kumar Sangakkara. Was pretty average. And to make matters worse, I started out life at a very rural school. In fact, there's someone in the audience who knew me at that time. Uday, I'm not sure where you are, but you knew me at the time. And I passed the grade 5 scholarship examination and gained entrance to a very prestigious school in Colombo. But at about the same time, an interesting thing happened, a rather sad thing, but also beneficial to me. One of my father's friends, a very close friend of his, lost his son. And his son studied at St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia. And my father went for the funeral. He was terribly sad. But you know what he did? He called the warden, or the sub-warden, and he said, listen, I've tried to get my son into St. Thomas's College over and over and over again, and you've rejected him. You've said there are no vacancies, but now I know there is a vacancy. This boy is dead. Take my son. So the one said, fine. We'll have to test him in Sinhalese, math, English and science. And I passed. And I got into St. Thomas's College, grade 5. Then the last time we met at St. Thomas's was near a tree, if you recall. You challenged a gang. I was the guy on top of the tree with the gang. I'm just kidding. But getting into St. Thomas's in grade 5, with the background that I came from, the school that I was at, was very difficult. I never won anything. In fact, the only prize I won at St. Thomas's was 3rd place for a recitation contest. I never bothered the scoreboard in cricket parlance. And by the time it came to my O-levels and A-levels, I was doing fairly well academically, and I was taking part in sports and things, but never a colorsman or anything like that. And I became a prefect, and I think it was one of those mercy appointments, Poor guy, he's been around, he's really trying, let's just make him a house prefect, he's going to leave in a term, so, yeah. That's what happened, literally what happened, because I became a house prefect, never a college prefect. You know what that means. And it was just for like 2 months, just before I left school, so a very, very average life at school. And my father, being a very strict, tough disciplinarian, knew that unless he did something, unless he made a severe intervention, this was going to be the rest of his son's life. Average. Average. And it wasn't great, I'll tell you that. And so he comes to me one day, he's not with us anymore, I lost him a few years ago, and he gives me a book. And the title of the book was Losing My Virginity. How many of you have read the book? Okay, Losing My... I was like, wow, Dad. Now we're talking. But you know, I kind of lost it a little while ago. I don't know if you know this, I didn't tell you, but the book's kind of... But he said, no, I want you to read this. And I did. It was written by Richard Branson. It was his first autobiography. And I was blown away by this guy who was a dyslexic, couldn't write numbers down. He was an utter failure. There was nothing special about him. Average. And here was this guy who started company after company. He faced failure after failure and became an iconic figure. One of the world's most successful men. And then I read about how he launched out his company, the record label. And I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to launch a record label. And so by this time I had gotten into university, got together with a few friends, and I said, let's launch a record label. Of course, I didn't know the first thing about launching a record label. And my friend told me, look, forget about it. We don't know anything about music. It's not going to happen. But there's this thing called the .com bubble. Okay? There's this thing called the internet. So let's try to do something with the internet. I didn't even have a computer at home. And neither did my friends. But what we did was we launched a company. We called it Genesis Design Studio. And we launched what was then, in 1998, Sri Lanka's first free classified advertisements website. And the guy who designed it, I'm serious, I'm not kidding. He bought a book, and the title of the book was How to Design Websites. Okay, and we sat down, he read it, and he designed something using some form of software. I'm not sure what it was. I'm sure it was some form of HTML. I'm sure Dalit would know much more about it than I would. But he designed a very basic site where you could place your classified advertisement website, advertisement free of charge, and hopefully have your whatever it is that you wanted sold. So we did this and we launched it as 4 university students. And by this time, I'd also begun to read news on television, and I was becoming a little familiar, a bit of a familiar face, so that helped a bit. But it was an extraordinary experience to launch a company at 18 or 19 years old. And what happened was, we began to go from, because we were so average and so nondescript, none of us were very popular with the girls. Getting a date was tough. But with the success of easy2.com, with a few advertisements, and then we began to design websites for other companies as well. And with a little money, we managed to buy ourselves a car. And at university, that's like your world if you have a car. What happened was we began to taste success, and we worked harder at it. We worked hard. And we began to realize and see the potential of what we were doing. And from 4 scraggly guys just running around not knowing what they were doing, we began to hire people at university, right here in Sri Lanka, and have them design websites for us. And really, the peak of what we did was when we won contracts for people like Sony and Bell Helicopters, and we designed websites for them and made a lot of money. Of course, we spent every single cent. We saved nothing. And finally, after university, we decided, okay, that's it. Let's sell this company off and have fun. And that's what we did. We sold the company, and we went our separate ways, but we had a great time. But we had a great time. Ambition took the four of us from average to something special, something extraordinary. And to taste that success was a fantastic experience at a young age. I felt like Asterix. Everybody knows who Asterix is, right? Asterix is a little guy. Okay? He's really left on his own, he can't do anything much. I was like Asterix. But with that taste of success, with that injection of ambition into my life, by so many people I can call my mentors, it was like drinking that little magic potion and then destroying the entire battalion of Roman warriors. It was fantastic. I couldn't live without it. I realized that sense of ambition inside of me that my father obviously was trying to spark off all those years ago was stronger, was more powerful than everyone out there who was more talented, skilled, and had more ability than I may have had. Now the thing about ambition is if you leave it alone, it's sort of like a seed. You plant a seed and you leave it and you forget about it and you don't water it and tend to it and protect it, it's unlikely it will grow into a tree. And here's where I met the right kind of people along the way. I remember the first time I walked into my chairman's room. I was about 20, I guess 19, 20 maybe. Mr. Raja Mahendran, the chairman of the Maharaj organization, he'd seen me reading news, and what he didn't know at the time was I used to tie my ponytail behind and ensure that nobody saw it, remove a earring, and read news. So when I went to see him, I went with all of that. I was like, you really? The guy, he was shocked. And then he made me sit in front of him and he asked me, so tell me, what do you want to do with your life? And I told him, I said, sir, and I didn't know much about this man, I'll be honest with you. He was far removed from where I was at the time. I said, sir, you have a great room. I'd love this room. I'd love a room like this. This man was the chairman of the company. And his greatness is such that, do you know what he told me? He said, if you work hard enough, why not? You can have it. And then he called the group director at the time, Mr. Manu Vikramanayaka, and said, hey Manu, this guy wants your job. And what I felt at that point was, here's this great man looking at me, seeing something that I probably didn't know I had. It was an amazing experience. And having seen the faith that the chairman and my father and several other people had in me, I realized that there was really something I could do here. And not just for myself, but people around me. You see, having an ambition alone is not enough. It's the difference between two men standing in front of a mountain. I want you to picture this. Two men standing in front of a mountain, the same mountain, 3,000 feet. One man knows what's on the other side of the mountain. Whatever it might be, your heart's desire, success, health, wealth, a wife, whatever. The other man doesn't. To him, it is a mountain. Now, which man do you think is likely going to scale the peak? The man who knows what's on the other side of the mountain. And this is what ambition means. Blind ambition is profanity. We've heard people talk about it. That man is ambitious. Or that woman is ambitious. It's almost like a bad word. Well, it is a bad word if you don't see what's on the other side of the mountain. You need to hook your mind to whatever it is you want on the other side of the mountain. That's what's going to drag you, drive you, push you when the going gets tough. because that's when you need ambition, not when things are going easy. Off the record, a few of you may know, I was called a terrorist a few years ago. You know how tough that is to take? Somebody who grows up in a country loving the soil that he walks on, proudly calling myself a Sri Lankan, flying the Sri Lankan flag high whenever I travel. To be called a terrorist is tough. But it's what he was talking about that's important. If you try, and if you fail, and if you keep going, it's not the outcome of success or failure that matters, but it's the resilience that you gain that will hold you in good stead down the line. It's important to understand that. See, most people fail to see the ground between a problem and its solution. Here you have a problem, and here's the solution. Some of us might run away from problems. I don't like dealing with that guy at work. I don't like dealing with this problem. Likelihood is it will fail. But here's what you don't see. When you take on a problem and you move towards the solution, you fight, you battle, you fall, you stand up. The solution is an outcome. It may be success or failure, but what happens in between? What happens in between? Experience. And unless you take on things that you are bound to fail in, the only experience you have is in clapping and applauding yourself for success. And leadership, and that is not what leadership is about. So ambition means hooking your mind to something on the other side of the mountain that will hold you in good stead and keep your ship afloat when the storm comes. And it will come. Also remember that ambition is infectious. Kumar alluded to it earlier when he said that he surrounds himself with great people. If he gets out for a duck, he doesn't have to worry about it because he's surrounded with great people. And great people often mean individuals. He spoke of Lassit Malinga. And unless you surround yourself with ambitious people who push you constantly, who drive you forward, the chances are you're going to slip back into mediocrity. And mediocrity, my dear friends, is the worst disease you can catch. Don't accept it. Mediocrity is the worst disease you can catch. Wake up in the morning, have your breakfast, go to work, come back home, go to sleep. Wake up in the morning, go to work, expect a promotion, forget it. Wasn't it Einstein who said, you must be stupid, probably not in the same way, but same words, but he said, you must be stupid to do the same thing and expect a different result. It's not going to happen. You want something to change, you've got to change.